YouTube audio check, test 1, 2.
There are a couple of over there. Can you call them?
Please, guys.
They went in there.
I think you're over there,
Ken,
Ken.
you are over here. Yeah, we can't miss you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the first meeting for Comprehensive Plan Update. I'm Shubha Jangam. Let me see, where are you? But I'm Shubha Jangam, Principal Planner for the city. And with me here are many staff members of Community Development Department, and our city manager, Steve Krokoff, is here with us. Sarah Leaders, the Community Development Department. Diana Wheelers, Community Development Advisor. Robin McDonald, Zoning Manager. Natalie is here. She's my co-planner. And we have our consulting partners from Kimley Horn, John Tooley and Jonathan DeMarcy over here. Before we dive into a long agenda, I just wanted to express how excited I am for this update. Last comprehensive plan 2040 was done 5 years ago. I was involved into that. And we have done so much planning wise in last 5 years, so that I'm excited to report on all of that, and get that reported in this comprehensive plan update. Milton is almost 20 years old, and it's still a young city. And mic is not on?
No, the mic is fine. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance. Yes. We can start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I just was going to introduce myself. Let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for reminding me. Thank you. So I was just going to say that Milton is 20 years old, but still young city, and it rose from the desire to shape the land in line with our rural heritage. From the beginning, the community has a clear vision that they wanted to preserve the equestrian and rural heritage and hold on to the small town way of life. Milton's success is not accidental. You have heard this before. It's through intentional planning, and first comprehensive plan paved path to the downtown at historic Crabapple, and you have seen the success of that. The last comprehensive plan turned everybody's head to the redevelopment of Highway 9 and Deerfield area. And next 5 months, CPAC, you guys and us will be reviewing and reaffirming the direction of our progress, and your role as CPAC is really important. I will get into that very soon. But yes, we want to quickly get you yourself introduced. So please tell us your name, who appointed you, and how long maybe you are here, and whatever related information. We could get started. Sure. You can use the mic, share.
Ken Warlick, DRB Chair. Mayor Jameson appointed me, and been here for almost 6 years.
Brian McNeese, Planning Commission, appointed by Doug Haney, and I've been on the Planning Commission now for, this is my second year, I think, second full year.
Cheryl Gloucester. I was appointed by my district chairperson, Commissioner Jan Jehobis. So I am looking forward to learning a lot and contributing a lot.
AJ Bulow. I was Brian Dolan's appointee for the Planning Commission, and this will be my first run at it as well.
And I'm Catherine Marshall. I was also nominated by Brian Dolan, and this will be my first run through, and I've been here in Milton since 2011.
My name is Sumit Shah, and I'm on the Planning Commission, and I've been on there for 10 years now, and this will be my third CPAC.
Oh, you guys have them? Okay.
Jamie Rogers, appointed by Doug Haney, and I've been here in either Milton or Alpharetta since 1977.
My name is Erica Grayson. I was appointed by Phil Cranmer, and I have been in, this is my first time with CPAC, and I have been in Milton for 3 years now.
Matt Titus, appointed by Mayor Jameson. First time on CPAC, but been living in Milton for about 10 years.
Hi, Judy Birds. I chair the Planning Commission, appointed by Juliet Johnson, and I'm in my 5th year on the Planning Commission.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Butler. I was appointed by Mayor Peyton Jameson. I started on Board of Zoning Appeals in 2021, then went to Planning Commission, then Parks and Rec. Now I'm back on Planning Commission.
Oh, Sarah, you want to say anything?
I think we're good, right?
We're good.
Let's get to business.
All right, so the next agenda is nomination of
I would like to nominate Judy Birds as chair.
Second?
So you just need to call for a vote.
I never played a board.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That was easy.
Great. I'd like to nominate,
Mike went out.
I'd like to nominate Ken Warlock as vice chair.
Second.
Yay.
Okay, we would like to call for a vote.
Yes. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Well, great. Congratulations, Judy and Ken.
Thank you.
And now you get to facilitate this meeting. Okay, the next item on the agenda is presentation. Okay, great.
Do you want to cover the early slides, or do you want me to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Hey everybody, John Tooley. It's great to be with you all. I'm a community planner with Kimberly Horn. Prior to that, I actually worked at the Atlanta Regional Commission for a number of years, so have known a lot of your staff for a while and have been up here several times. It's great to be here with you all. Jonathan Demerchi is also helping me out. There'll be a couple others from the team members from the team as we go forward that y'all may see. Today's meeting is meant to be a little bit of an intro and an overview. Some of you have done this before several times. Some of you, I think you said this is your first time. And so we want to make sure we're kind of covering our bases and folks understand kind of what we're doing and how we're going about it. Let me back up one slide. I feel a little bit like a talk show host holding this. So real quick, so the agenda of what we're doing. So we'll cover the responsibilities of the CPAC, project goals and schedule, implementation progress. I'm actually going to have Shuba come back up for that, just to talk a little bit about, since the last plan briefly, she was already giving us a couple of highlights earlier. Then we'll get into the meat of the meeting. We'll talk about the current vision and mission, talk about issues and opportunities, demographics, and we'll end the conversation by starting to talk about development and land use. We're scheduled to have several reoccurring meetings, and at each meeting, we're going to actually cover a particular topic. That'll be the topic we kind of discussed that time, and we'll see how it goes, but what we're thinking is we'll introduce the topic in one meeting. We'll start talking about it. Depending on how far we get, we may come back the next meeting, finish up the topic, and intro the next one. So there'll be a little bit of a rolling cadence, if you will, to that. So today's meeting, when we get to the back end of it, is mainly going to be focused on land use, but we kind of want to make sure, like I said, we're set up kind of facing the same direction, going the same way. All right, responsibility of CPAC. So for those of you that have done this before, and I'm going to get into this again in a couple of slides, but comprehensive plans are something that a lot of communities do. It's a good thing to kind of stop and do planning where you're thinking ahead about what's next and what should we be doing as a community. The State Department of Community Affairs actually sets up standards for how local governments should do this. One of the key things they have when you're doing a planning update is community engagement, and a piece of that is a steering committee, a stakeholder committee, and that's what the CPAC serves as in this case. And so that's that first bullet point. We're actually meeting a requirement by the state, but each of you have a unique perspective. And so what we want to do is, as we're moving through the process, talking about different elements, your perspective, your background, the time you've been here, fresh eyes, or folks have been here for a while, providing some key points on key elements as we go. Act as a sounding board on behalf of the community. There'll be opportunity for the public to review and comment on things as we go. We're sort of talking about that with you all as we move through. Serve as community liaisons. I think as we went around, you all heard either different council members or different boards or committees that you've served on. A lot of you may not even live necessarily in the exact same part of the city, and so representing different perspectives and ideas from around the community. As I mentioned, we're planning to meet 5 times, first Thursday of each month, and so you can see the months we have up. I think most everybody should have a calendar invite from Shuba for each of those. Is that correct? You'll have, so you'll notice it'll be the first Thursday. If anybody has a conflict, we at least are streaming these, and so you might be able to, but we really would love to have you in person, obviously. And then we'll have it recorded so that later, if you want to go back and review something, it'll be there as well. So that's a little bit about y'all's role. Mentioned a little bit of this again. Some of this is really remedial and repeat for some of y'all. Some of this may be the first time you've even heard anybody talk about a comprehensive plan. And so it does a couple of things. One, it outlines the community's desired vision for the future. Kind of what do we want to be? Where do we want to grow? How do we want to grow? It's guidance for zoning and land use decisions. So at its core, it is a land use plan. So whether it's your staff, the city, the planning commission, or the council, the comprehensive plan should be one of the elements that feeds into that. Some communities, it is the element, but honestly, there's a lot of elements that play into making decisions on that. So it should be providing guidance on that. It covers a lot of different topics beyond land use. If you have all these smart folks together, hi, welcome. If you have all these smart folks together thinking about all these issues related to the city, let's also think, what are the other things that affect development and land use, like transportation, like housing, economic development, sustainability. There's some other things that are worth talking about while we're here. Sorry, yeah. So I got into a little bit of how it's used. Again, it provides guidance for staff, planning commission, others. Staff actually a lot of times will base their staff reports, whether it's a rezoning or if there's another permitting process or something else they're going through, they'll use the comp plan as one of those elements of their report. It also can help the community figure out where do we need to direct our investments. If this is the area we're going to grow in this way, how do we respond with appropriate infrastructure, whether it be roads or other things related to that. There may be other policies that are related to development and land use that can feed out of this. So whether that be incentives or other economic development related things that this may support. Now, why are we updating this? You heard some folks said, I think this is their 3rd time doing it. The state actually now requires that a community revisit their comp plan every 5 years. Now, they don't have to do a full-blown rewrite every year, but every 5 years, let's stop and take stock of where we are. And maybe we determine that we need to do a full update, or maybe we're kind of continuing on the course where we are. And so we're really just refreshing the comprehensive plan as we move. And so every 5 years, we're required to revisit it. Provides an opportunity to kind of think about what are the things and the ways that our community has changed. Maybe a lot of development has happened. Maybe there's a new regional project of some sort that's come in. Maybe our neighbors are doing something that is impacting us in a positive way or other. And so how do we need to kind of update our policies and our priorities related to that? I'll get into this a little more. This update, if you're kind of playing along at home, is not one of those kind of bigger, let's throw things out, let's really kind of start from scratch. This is more of a, let's take a temperature check, let's take a status check. How are we doing on the things we said we were going to do? Whether it's the land use vision, whether it's the community work program, whether it's another element, how are we doing and what do we need to maybe adjust or amend or stay the course? Part of that is kind of thinking about what are the issues facing our community today and how are they different than they were maybe 5 years ago. You think about 5 years ago, that was kind of right in the middle of us figuring out what in the world's going on with the pandemic and what life was going to look like after that. And so things have definitely changed from before 2020, 2021, and have changed even after that. And so this is a good chance to kind of make sure we're up to date on that. So as I mentioned, a lot of elements that the state requires us to look at, but a lot of these things we may be kind of carrying forward, staying the course, and we may be doing some targeted adjustments on some other things as well. Today, what we're actually going to get into is starting to think about what are the issues and opportunities, the challenges facing the city as we move ahead. And that's going to be some of our initial discussion today. And then that conversation honestly will continue as we meet each week. There may be other opportunities to come up and think about what's facing our city today that we need to address. I'll pause right here real quick for Shuba to give us a couple of highlights since the last plan.
Yes. So as I said, 5 years ago, Comprehensive 2040 was adopted, and it came with a series of short-term projects to achieve the goals and objectives that are in the comp plan. And numerous staff members from various departments helped us execute that short-term work program. And these are just some of the projects, noteworthy projects from that short-term work program. Obviously, at the end of this exercise, you will be also putting together another list of projects. But as you know, Mayfair District was one of our neighborhood plan for sub-area of Crabapple District. We adopted it in 2022. Urban growth boundary also sprouted from Comprehensive Plan 2040. It was like a second line of defense against our sewer expansion to protect our rural Milton. So that was adopted in, again, 2022. Destination Deerfield was adopted just last year. It focuses on the Deerfield side of the city. Arnold Mill was also adopted last year. It is a small area plan for the Highway 140, part of Milton, corridor of 140. Windward Parkway and Highway 9 strategic master plan was done in partnership with City of Alpharetta. That focused on more of a strategic planning way, and the large lot incentive is another project that focused on creating incentives for the large lot. Now, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, we can go on. Yes, Judy.
One of the major undertakings that was requested, I guess, as part of the 2040 plan was to rewrite the code into the UDC. So I think that's kind of a major implementation progress that was accomplished as well.
Yes, it was accomplished.
My fellow planning commissioners will remember many a late night going line by line, and a big kudos for Robin on helping us with that.
Absolutely, Robin. Thank you. Okay, we can move on.
And definitely just the highlights. There's a Shuba mentioned the community work program. So when you get to the end of a comp plan process, what we then do is we look at, okay, what are the actions we need to undertake in order to implement this plan? And it covers a lot of different topics. So there's a lot more even covered in that community work program than just the couple of plans or even the UDC that the city's been actively working on and moving towards. At a future meeting, I think one of the things we'll do is just kind of take stock even of that item. There's an element of any comp plan update called a report of accomplishments, exactly like it sounds. And we'll probably just share kind of a quick update on how are we doing. A lot of those plans and all of those projects that come up are dependent on funding, timing of funding from whether it's regional grants or federal grants, partnering with other communities nearby and them being able to be on the same page, and then maybe priorities shifting and changing within a community. So keep that in mind as you kind of think about some of the things that we have pushed ahead on, some of the things we still have to go. I'm going to back up one slide. So mentioned a couple of the items that we're going to be updating, and a couple items maybe going to kind of hold to a little bit. What we're going to do at each of these meetings is pick up those elements and kind of talk about them one by one. Land use and development, transportation, economic development. We'll kind of look at them as we go. We may pair up a couple, and it'll be at that point that we'll kind of stop and think, okay, this is definitely more of an item that is an update, a status check, and then we may identify some items that either during the last plan we didn't really talk about as much as we wanted to, we didn't go as deep as we wanted to, or there's new questions that have come up. And so as we work through, keep that in mind. We'll give you a little bit of a primer prior to the meeting to know kind of what's coming next. This being the first meeting, didn't want you to have to do a lot of homework before you showed up. Okay. I'll pause real quick. So that's kind of the overview generally of comp plan and CPAC. We had one question, appreciate that. Any other questions generally about why am I here sitting in this room? What are we doing? And I know I'm holding a mic and you're sitting kind of at sort of a board, but this is meant to be informal as much as it can be. We just wanted to make sure folks could hear and see us that actually joined online.
I have one clarifying question. You mentioned a lot about land usage. Is that still a topic that's ongoing, or do we have plans for the most part? Where are we in terms of timeline and land usage? Does that go through 4040 or
Yeah.
2040?
No, that's a great question. So there's a couple of things, couple ways to answer that. One, as I mentioned, a core element of the comp plan is land use. And so what we'll see in just a couple of slides here is there's a series of different maps that start to say, where do we want to grow and how do we want to grow throughout the city? And so those are active maps that the city uses as they make decisions on whether it's, again, permitting or rezoning or development proposals that come in to the community. So it's always active. There's always something going on. The developments that you see as you drive around the city somehow at some point came through these doors one way or another and got its approvals, got its permits. So that's an active thing. The other thing Shubha mentioned is you have these other smaller area plans and other studies have been done. This is a focused effort for the city to lean in and try to think about, okay, what else do we need to do in these areas? Maybe there's a specific reason or a special reason why we want to look here. In this case, in the case of Milton, is a few of these places you all may recognize. These are the places we want to grow in the city. These are the places we're okay seeing additional development while trying to preserve and protect some of the other existing more rural areas. So it's kind of a both and there's a lot of different things. And the other activities the city is doing related to transportation or economic development is also feeding into that as well. So a couple of slides, good question, a couple of slides and you'll see that. Let me pause real quick because I realized I didn't say this. In front of you all, there's a packet. City provided some nice folders and pins for you. There's a couple of things. There's an agenda. The PowerPoints are printed out. There's a couple of worksheets we'll get to here in just a little bit, just so you know what you have in front of you. So these slides you actually already have, and we'll make sure and make them available to you afterwards as well. Okay. So a little bit about the process. Just a high-level snapshot of what we're doing and kind of where we're headed. Think about this as kind of being in three big buckets of overall process. We, the consultant team, have already been working on what's called the existing conditions. We kind of look at what's going on in the city currently, look at demographics and economic related things. We look at your previous plans, what have you been doing since then, and kind of assess a lot of different things. Transportation, so we're doing kind of our homework in the background. In some ways, think about it, we're catching up to a lot of things you all already know and getting a good understanding of where the city has been and where you're going. Where we're moving into kind of as we speak is we're starting to move into plan development. So we're starting to talk about each of these elements within the comprehensive plan, starting with today and moving through. So that's the next several months that we'll be going through plan development. And then ultimately toward the end is deliverables and adoption. Now I have October up there. Mentioned DCA earlier. Per DCA, the deadline for the city to have an adopted plan is October, but we're on a track to finish things up a little before that, just to have some room and some buffer to absorb, any other unforeseen things that might come up. The lines underneath are just representing a couple of things. At the beginning and the end of the process, there's a required public hearing by the state. So we did that a couple of weeks ago right here, just to let the community know the process was starting. We'll do it at the end. Advisory committee you see there in the middle, and then there'll be some updates to council and others as we go through. The one thing I want to mention, you may hear us say this a couple of times, is the Atlanta Regional Commission, ARC, and then DCA have a review role at the end of this. Now, they're not reviewing to see how good your policies are, or if they agree with your policies, or if they think you need more or less. They're literally looking at it, did you check the boxes from their standpoint of what a comp plan should include? So toward the end of the process, we'll send it off to them for their review. Majority of the time, they have advisory comments. I used to make a joke that expect comments to come back from them because I think they got paid by how many comments they could find to send back. They've changed a little bit, but they'll have some advisory comments at least, and we can address those prior to adoption. Regarding engagement, so CPAC, y'all kind of understand some of this. Some of you may or may not know. So the city's had this committee for a while and has reconstituted it each time there's a comp plan update. But there's a makeup that they've kind of decided on that has different representation from council and others. But to get a good view and a good perspective from a lot of different corners of the city, they're open to the public. So that's why we're recording it and it'll be posted later. But if somebody from the public wanted to join us, they could join us in the back and kind of watch and see what's going on as we go through these. We do have a project website that's been set up. So either now or later, you can click that link or scan the QR code and go there. There'll be information on the project, on the schedule, upcoming meetings. As we have draft information, we'll have it up there available not just for you all, but also for the public when it's appropriate time to kind of share with them. So keep that in mind, and then encourage you all to share it with folks that might be interested or have questions about what's going on. This is kind of a good point for if somebody was curious what the city does and how they deal with developments and how they plan for the future. This is at least a good kind of consolidated process for them to maybe join us and see what's going on. So encourage folks to go there. Okay. So as I mentioned, what we're charged with this time is not necessarily starting everything from scratch. Now, most comp plans honestly do carry forward a lot of things. They are long-term plans, and they don't really just every time throw it out and start from scratch. There's always some good things that carry forward. Maybe when some of our newer cities incorporated, like when this area went from being unincorporated to city, there were some things that maybe were adjusted more specifically. But a lot of communities, there's a cadence to this, and there's a lot of information and policies that carry forward. In this case, one of the things that we're kind of setting out is the vision and mission that are in the current comp plan. We're using that as our guidepost, as kind of our north arrow, if you will, to kind of keep in mind as we move through the process. So we're not planning on revisiting this. It's not really our charge. However, as we go through the process, if there is anything about this that we think, you know what, there's an important point here that we're missing somewhere in the plan, or something's changed and maybe something's more of an important point than it was, that's something just to kind of note, especially as we get into the different elements. But keep this in mind, come back and just kind of reference this, if you will. It's some higher level vision and mission language, but I think there's some interesting things that are in here, whether it's quality of life, whether it's sense of community and place, rural heritage, obviously. There's some key things in there to kind of keep in mind as we move through it. Probably no surprises to most of y'all, but again, maybe a good thing to share with folks who that may or may not have kind of plugged into the city yet. Okay, here's where we move more toward the beginnings of the discussions. We're going to introduce a couple of things here, and then we're going to stop and we'll have a discussion. One of the early exercises in a comp plan update is to stop and think about issues and opportunities facing the community. What's an issue and opportunity? Okay. Think of it as like a challenge. Is there something facing us that we need to be thinking about? There's a lot of different things that the community deals with regularly, things we need to make investments in, things we need to be prepared to respond to. And opportunities are just that, something we can leverage to improve the community and get us to where we want to go. The bullet list you see down at the bottom is how Milton has organized these in the previous plan and how we're going to kind of stick to at this point. These also happen to be some of the elements, the key elements that we're going to discuss as we move through the project. So you see they're organized by land use, housing, intergovernmental coordination, how do we work with our neighbors, how do we work with regional agencies and others, sustainability, economic development, financing, which is a little bit twofold, we'll come back to that, transportation, and then placemaking and branding. Most of those terms probably know. Placemaking, is that a familiar term to most folks at this point? So it's a little bit self-explanatory, right? It's how you make a place. And in planner speak, we refer to places as something that's intentionally done. So everywhere you go, it's a place, right? Every shopping center you go to, somebody designed it, somebody built it. With placemaking, what we're trying to do is intentionally create a place that has more of a sense of community, has a place where we can gather, where we can get together, is potentially, maybe it's more walkable. Maybe it's a place that people go to interact with their neighbors. And so the idea that we're trying to create something that's a little more intentional and intentionally Milton. And so that's what that item is related to, but also just helping the area have an identity that feels like when you're in Milton, you know you're in Milton. And so it's not just that there's a sign when you drive in that says, welcome to Milton, whether it's the architecture or the way we do sidewalks, or the way we plant or our streetscapes, materials we use, there's some other elements to that as well. So we'll work our way through these topics through each of the meetings. We'll actually take a moment here to give you all a chance to kind of look through and have a quick discussion about some of that. All right, so I'm going to hand it to Jonathan for a minute, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what's in front of you and get us ready for the first discussion.
Thanks, John. So yeah, as we mentioned earlier, in y'all's packets, you should have a handout, 2 pages, paper clipped together. So that's the issues and opportunities from the previous comprehensive plan. We're not asking you to go through every single one today, but in a little bit, we're going to give you a second to look at that, scan it, see if there's any that just jump out at you as this is absolutely still an issue or an opportunity. And then the inverse, are any of these no longer a priority? And then really we're asking at the bottom of each section, you'll see a spot for you to note if we're missing anything, if there's any other issues or opportunities. So we'll come back to that in a second. I quickly do want to talk about, I know y'all know Milton very well, but just to kind of get your gears turning, We have a couple of statistics and trends that may feed into how you think about issues and opportunities facing the city. So a few of those to call out. So your population's about 41,000 people. That is the smallest city in North Fulton. Not necessarily a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing, but that's how y'all sit kind of compared to your peers. Median age is 38.4. That's slightly higher than the metro average, but that's also a regional and a national trend that age is continuing to go up in different communities. Other thing is y'all have 80% of adults with a bachelor's degree or higher. That is actually, compared to all of your peers in North Fulton, the highest educational attainment. So both compared to your peers, the region, and even beyond. Then the one thing we want to call out is the difference in growth rate pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So 2010 to 2020, y'all grew at about 2.26%. From 2020 to 2025, that has gone down to 0.12. We checked that a couple times. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that Milton's growing a little bit differently. Some of that could be attributed to household sizes, people moving within the city. Obviously wouldn't make that go up or down. So just something to call out, something to note. Then a couple more just about employment and income. So there's close to 10,000 full-time jobs within Milton. Pretty interesting fact with that, though, is about 91% of the people who fill those jobs come from outside of Milton. And then also inversely, the majority of people who live in Milton work elsewhere throughout North Fulton and beyond. As y'all know, Milton's a very affluent community. The median household income is $167,000. That's more than double the Atlanta metro average, and it's pretty consistent with your North Fulton peers. So Johns Creek, a little higher than Roswell, similar to Alpharetta, and median home value is pushing $800,000.
Yeah, just a couple of things. So we're actually, is this on? I think it's on. We have a much longer set of kind of analysis that we're doing. We don't want to bore you all to tears. I mean, we're data nerds. So if somebody wants to talk afterwards about it, we have a longer slide deck that has a lot of that in there. We'll actually share that with you all once that's ready in a draft form that can be shared, just because I think there's some other interesting information. For those that have been in Milton for a little while, there's probably not a lot of surprises in most of this. I mean, the median household income, the home values, educational attainment, that probably sits well with most of y'all. That kind of matches with what you probably know about the community. This is just a snapshot, though. This is the quantitative. There's always a qualitative angle to that. There's a thought of it's from directionality, which way are we going or not. I think the other thing about the population growth, Jonathan, we'll go back to that one. You know, that's an interesting trend. The 3 bullets at the bottom are your neighbors, and there's kind of a similar trend. And so is this pandemic related? I mean, there was a lot of in-migration, out-migration that just stopped for a couple of years. There's a lot of changes that have been happening within the community. Some of those communities are built out. Roswell, for instance, is going through a process of trying to figure out, well, how do we keep growing at all when everything's built out? That's a different type of growth than before. You all haven't quite gotten there, but you have constrained growth specifically, purposely, because you're trying to preserve that. So one, we're not trying to say that we know why population looks like it's different, kind of growing at a different pace, but that is kind of where we're sitting right now. In that same time frame, 2010 to 2020, it was about 9,000 or so that the population grew, maybe about 10,000. And so we're 5 years through the next decade, and we've only grown by maybe 1,000. So, I mean, maybe the development engine and population growth engine is going to turn on, and we're going to grow by another 6, 7, 8,000 over the next couple of years, or maybe we're just on a slightly different trajectory. The point's not, again, that it's a negative, positive. Actually, we'd be interested to hear y'all's thoughts. It's just a different story than maybe it was before, where North Fulton in general couldn't stop the growth. I mean, you were having to tell people, slow down, and it's just kind of a different take. Again, not something that's unique to you all. There's a lot of communities that are in the exact same spot. The other thing is household sizes are changing compared to where they were before. There's less children. School age cohorts are kind of not the same size that they were before. And out there generally, a couple of just random sort of anecdotal stats. The university system has kind of said this current class is the largest class we will have had, and that they will shrink after this point, just given demographics, given what they know about what to expect. If y'all been kind of playing along or listening along at home with school discussions, Fulton County, DeKalb County, a lot of the bigger school systems are having these conversations about consolidation because they have more school space than they do children. So again, not a negative thing, just means we're growing a little different. A few years ago, the thing everybody was always talking about was the growth of the senior population. And I think a lot of us have seen that. What does that mean? Well, we need to provide spaces that are appropriate for seniors, spaces for them to age in place and to stay here, facilities outside that they can use. Maybe there's additional services we need. So how do we respond to just the kind of changing demographics? Every community we work with is changing and having to kind of respond to that. So again, we have a lot more data. I think most of it, when we share with you, you're going to be like, yeah, not surprised. But there's probably a couple of interesting points like this that would be, something interesting to keep in mind. I'll stop there for a second before we go to any questions on the very quick data snapshot that we.
What's the hypothesis on the compound growth rate that slowed down so significantly in the past 5 years? Is that because due to the pandemic, are people moving even further out in places like Cherokee and Forsyth are the beneficiary and their compound growth rate is what ours used to be? What's the working hypothesis about why there's such a...
Yeah, we were talking with staff about this. I mean, honestly, and again, y'all aren't the only community we've been talking to this about. I think there's a lot of running ideas on this. I don't think anybody knows for sure. I think one, again, changing household size has an impact. If you go from having multiple children to maybe one child, maybe no child, that's going to do it. The types of folks who we're attracting to the region, I mean, are these more empty nesters that are moving in? Are there more families that are moving in? That can be part of it. There's a certain aspect of affordability that may be part of it, where a lot of the new homes are being built are more in that affordable range, kind of home building age range. And so maybe North Fulton doesn't offer that, but Forsyth County or Hall County or further out does. I mean, there's a lot actually running hypotheses on it. It's also 2020, 21 did have a pretty significant impact on just in and out migration everywhere. I mean, everybody kind of just stopped. Like folks we all probably know went out to Colorado and worked remote. That doesn't really count as moving, but there was definitely a pause on that. So that's impacting this number. And so it would be interesting to see kind of what happens from there. But I mean, do you have thought, or anybody else or staff have? Go get you first. Yeah.
So I have kind of a unique perspective because I live in Milton and develop in Milton. So I think there's a direct correlation between land values and home values. The more the land goes up, the larger that the land is, financially and economically, you can't build a smaller home. So that's the land prices go up, the homes have got to be larger. And so I think it becomes a point to where we're hitting a certain price point that it's the have and have nots. So, and I think that there's a lot of people that would ideally love to move to the city of Milton, but just can't afford it anymore. That's what I'm seeing in my day-to-day as far as development goes and housing in the city of Milton and Alpharetta and Roswell, which I'm in all of those. So
New product can't be had for anything under.
that's correct. Yeah, it just doesn't exist. And so that I think is what the driver is, because there's so many people that I meet with day in and day out that want to live but can't afford it. And so as the land goes up, the land gets bigger, the homes go up, the homes get bigger, the prices get larger. People just can't afford it. So that's slowing growth, in my opinion, without having additional restrictions in place to kind of curb that, if that's kind of what the idea of the city is to do.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Just a reminder to everybody, if you're going to speak, please speak into the microphone.
Sorry.
We may have some people listening remotely or might want to listen on the replay, so make sure.
My bad.
I have a quick question, and I don't know if anybody's done this analysis or not, but are there, I think of declining population and I think tax shortfalls and less revenue, right? So are there material things that we want to do as a city long-term that we won't be able to afford if we don't have enough people paying taxes in the city?
Or is that offset?
Or is it offset
by the value of the homes and the taxes?
I don't know the answer to that question, but it at least I would think should be looked at.
The one thing I will say is city's definitely still growing and the population is still pretty stable and healthy. It's not at the point of declining. You're probably right. And there's probably a certain amount of, as there is anything available, it is getting purchased. We don't have empty homes. We don't have derelict neighborhoods. I mean, everywhere is full, and as new things come online for the most part, and there's ups and downs every year in the real estate market everywhere, but community's not declining in any way. It's more, maybe it's plateauing, and maybe that's a permanent, or maybe that's a temporary. It's absolutely a good thought. But maybe one thought is, if we thought we were going to be, not that anybody wants to do this, not that this was quoted anywhere, but if we wanted to be 60,000 and we had these things we were hoping for or planning for, but we're not going to get there. Okay. We just kind of adjust. There was nothing in the previous plan, nothing that y'all have said that wanted astronomical growth. It was this intentional, slow, kind of methodical growth. And what y'all wanted to do, you kind of see it happening in a lot of places. So, I mean, my initial, if staff has other thoughts, because y'all are right in the middle of this. No. Yeah, there's one more question, I think.
I think it was answered. I mean, for what I do in apartment development, when we track, when median home value increases, we see population growth slow. We see a direct correlation of that. I don't know if you have any graphs or anything like that. We just kind of see the next, the Forsyth, the next ring is where we're seeing most of the population growth.
Yeah. No, I think that tracks. We have the data on y'all's home values and incomes, and then, population growth, and kind of show correlation, causation, right? There's some differences in that, but yeah, that's an interesting thought. I think that tracks with what you were saying as well.
I did have one more comment too, because I believe we talked about this last CPAC as well, and almost maybe even the time before, where one thing that we were contemplating or thinking about is the affordability and being able to have some area for people who are, first-time home buyers who are not going to have that income level to be able to buy a $2 million house, but want to kind of get into this area. We were even thinking contemplating for people who want to work around this area, but maybe more of those lower entry kind of jobs where, they can't be close by here. And then it's hard for them to even get into the city. There's no transportation for them to get somewhere into the city, where if they had more kind of affordable housing here, then that's where people could be able to live in this area with, lower home prices, or, now we're looking at multifamily coming in, or more multifamily as well. Because again, we probably didn't have multifamily in this area too for a long time. And, one of the projects that we just had in front of us in the Planning Commission, where now there's going to be multifamily coming into the Deerfield area. And so again, things like that to also contemplate for us in a planning standpoint, for visioning out where we want to go. And do we want to have some areas, some more, ways of trying to attract that and have that within our city to, so that we don't just have all $2+ million houses, but we've got an opportunity for some people to be able to live in this area and come in and starter homes, affordable places, multifamily, whatever it might be, to kind of have a balance of kind of, people and income levels and whatever else in here. So again, I think we talked about this some in the last CPAC as well, and that just may be something to contemplate for visioning out for this time as well.
Yeah, appreciate that. So we'll have a session on housing that'll kind of focus on that. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be affordable housing. It can be kind of this discussion of what is the type of housing that we want to see in this community in general. Single family, large estate. What do we want to see in general? A lot of that vision's already kind of been set in the previous plans. And so this is a good chance to revisit and then bring up a conversation like that, especially if it's been an ongoing conversation. And then I'll say, almost every community we work in, this is a regular conversation. 10 years ago, probably not. There were a lot of communities that just didn't even want to talk about housing or housing attainability or affordability. It just wasn't something they even wanted to broach. And there's a lot of communities that are at least asking, should we be talking about it? So
Question, do a lot of the other communities that you work with have limited access to sewer?
Some of them do, the ones that are farther out.
Yeah, so I think that's the one characteristic of the city of Milton that kind of helps. And the city's website says it perfectly. It's rural, but not remote. So we're within close access to a lot of these different amenities, but it's rural enough. And really the driver of that is the geographical, locations of the sewer that are available in Milton. So you have already that kind of line of determination of what could be more dense, what could be less dense. And And so that's why I think it's really great that we've been looking at these different nodes, because those are going to be your typically your higher density areas. And also, to be honest with you, you get less flack and kickback from the community, citizens, and neighbors, because a lot of them are the NIMBYs, right? If y'all not familiar with that, it's not in my backyard, right? I call it how it is. I apologize. But so the other thing is that I think that that's an ongoing battle politically, is because you have a lot of original inhabitants in the city of Milton that may have it, but they don't want other people to have it. And that's just kind of uniform across a lot of different cities, right? But the fact that we have these different nodes where we could possibly introduce the affordable housing and focus more on that, I think that's probably a bigger target area than kind of making rural, because especially since it seems like the city of Milton wants to go to larger lots, right? So anyway.
So I'm going to say, I think this is really good conversation that we want to use to come back to and get into land use. So let's.
Yeah, sorry.
No, this is great. This is perfect. And again, like I said, this is not meant to be too formal. I know we're standing up here and you're sitting there. Jonathan's going to walk through just one more thing, I think, and then I'll come up here in just a minute. Keep us on track.
Yep. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, so the only thing left is the worksheet. So y'all have that in front of you. So like I said, there's a checkbox and an X, not asking you to go through line by line, but we'll give you 5 minutes maybe to just scan that. Does anything jump out as still a priority, not a priority? And then is anything missing? And then we might go around and see if a few folks have something. So we'll give you a couple minutes to do that.
And just a housekeeping item, since we're taking 5 minutes, the restrooms are right behind me.
Yes.
And there's also a restroom behind there. And if anybody needs any more water, we can get that for you too.
If you have any questions on what you're looking at, just raise your hand. We can come by and.
Are we focusing just on land use at this time? Or the whole thing?
I mean, like we
Okay.
said, yeah, we'll come back to other topics.
Likely as we go through the whole process, we may come back to something later. We just want to kind of, you know the city now, kind of what are you going to think of? There's a lot of things that can sound really brief.
Oh my God, you found that? Okay, I was wondering. He said something about paper-clipped one. All right, there you go. Oops.
We need a little music next time we do this, so there's a little break up the silence. I thought Shuba was going to sing for us, but she stepped out.
Please no.
There she is. We'll give you all just a couple more minutes. Any questions, anything you're looking at from anybody? No? Cool. Not sure if anybody's gone back to school recently. It's kind of like a test, right?
This will be graded. Now, maybe we'll start, just if anyone has something that just jumped out immediately, any category, y'all can keep working on it. And like we said, as we roll through stuff more, feel free to keep jotting it down. Anything jump out at anyone? Still a priority, not a priority?
So on the land use side, just continuing priority on what to do with agricultural lands that are sold for residential use, what we want those future residential uses to look like.
Okay.
Preserve equestrian-oriented development, rural character, promote high development standards. And then the two that were kind of new for me was implement Birmingham Crossroads as a village center. I thought that was a great idea. And then continue to redevelop Highway 9 corridor.
Yeah.
I also think from a sustainability perspective, a lack of recycling and waste strategy. I think, yeah.
So something that jumped out to me was it says under transportation, lack of walkability in commercial nodes and near schools. And then, the first point of our vision and mission is promote a high quality of life, which seems to be walking, right? Physical fitness.
Yeah.
And I live on land in Milton, and there's nowhere for me to walk unless I want to, get out there with the F-150s. So to me, I think that thing needs to be broader than just walkability in commercial nodes and near schools. And we need to have a broader conversation about walkability if the first thing we're trying to do is improve our folks' quality of life.
Yeah, walkability, trails, all things that
I
play
think
into that.
too, just a tagline on walkability. One of the things that's a concern for me with school buses, and when the buses are delivering children home and pick up, we all know that when the bus stops, traffic stops on both sides. So I was thinking if there's an opportunity that we can have more of a safety measure around, and I don't know where that fits into the plan, but more of a safety measure regarding, school bus stops. Is there a possibility to have them create some type of
like a pull off or something?
pull off? That way children are safe, right? Traffic can continue. So just something to think about.
No, it's a good thought. Yeah, there is the transportation section, so that's definitely something that, probably don't get into like designing what the pull-off looks like with the comp plan, but definitely something to call attention to.
So it's a good point too, because like I said earlier, comp plan is one of those, it's focused on land use, but we've got folks that are actively thinking about what our community needs. City has other plans, including a transportation plan. And so are there some things we've identified in the comp plan that's a priority for the city to kind of consider? We have staff in the back that's worked on this for years. And as we get to the transportation meeting, the transportation section, talk about it more. They'll have, I'm sure, some other thoughts on that. We'll have some things to kind of share. But yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done related to safety that I know Milton's already been working on. I mean, you can even drive around Crabapple and see a lot of the pedestrian improvements in this area. So it's good. Yeah.
I always think of it like, what are the breadcrumbs? I mean, land use, it really does dig in on with the future land use map and all that, but what are the breadcrumbs on other topics that we want to leave for the city to come back and pick up with other planning efforts?
Real quick, in the past, how much engagement has there been with the homeowners and the residents between the CPAC committee and some of the topics that we're talking about here? And where I'm going with this is, I mean, we're all sort of appointed representatives of elected representatives. So we're here really to represent the whole community. So I'm just curious, what are the mechanisms, or how much has this committee, if we're tasked with this sort of 2040 vision plan, how much engagement is there with the public? Because in my opinion, there should be tons of feedback, tons of little fireside chats in neighborhoods and clubhouses and things like that, or possibly on the green, where we're getting feedback, right, from the public. It's not necessarily about what we all want as a committee for the development of Milton. It's what do the residents here want, right? They're the property owners, they pay the taxes. So again, just something to think about. There's not really a category on here, but I'm just going to throw out the idea of lots and lots of public engagement and public opinion and getting feedback. So.
Yeah, that's true. In the last comp plan, we had a major online survey.
Okay.
And as a CPAC members, as a representative of community, you can always talk to your neighbors and raise the issues. That's what we are expecting from you to, do the representation from the community. Whatever feedback you get, share the website, share the videos that they can watch at their convenience, and then get back to you, and you bring us their ideas here.
Well, and the city, from what I understand, I know because I'm the president of my HOA, the city's pretty active about trying to maintain contact information, points of contact. So, I mean, we could certainly use that as a two-way conduit, right? We can push things out to the HOAs through their point of contact that they designate with the city. At the same time, we can use them as a conduit to feed back to us. So just something to think about going forward when we start making major decisions about, what we're going to do going forward.
Right. And that's exactly what we did 5 years ago when we had a brand new comprehensive plan. We started with that, the survey, big survey. What are the major priorities? For this time, we are just updating. So we would love to get your feedback. Are we going in the right direction? Whatever we said 5 years ago. But yes, please talk to your neighbors and let us know what they think.
Yeah, I think another way to think about it is building on the input that happened last time, and then trying not to deviate wildly from that. But I think as a group, as a committee, if we kind of realize there's some things here that are a little bigger, and is there a question about additional engagement? I mean, that's something that staff, and our team can always kind of think through. But since we're building off of the engagement of last time and trying to hold to a lot of the main principles within the plan, y'all are sitting in a really interesting spot to help us do, like we've been saying, a status check. But same thing, the public is welcome to kind of participate in this status check. So as these meetings get posted, and we have ability for them to comment via the website, just as you all are, that's another opportunity for them to engage. And then at the end, there'll be more of a concerted effort to say, okay, so here's where we are. We're not actually going to literally grade ourselves, but for our conversation here, here's how we kind of graded ourselves, and here are the things we kind of see ahead of us. And community, do you have any other thoughts on where we're going on that? So there will be a couple of opportunities for folks to comment, but really trying to build on the great engagement. And it was more than even just a survey. There was a lot of community engagement that happened through the last plan update.
And AJ, also, we didn't have any members of the public here, so we didn't point it out, but there are some comment cards. If someone wanted to give input, they could fill that out and leave it. To be able to give input, as well as going online to do it as.
That's what I'm going to say. Does the city have a mechanism online? Because that's
Yes, absolutely.
the easier we make it, the better.
If you check your packet, there is a QR code, and that's a website, direct website link.
Okay.
And they can either put their comment there. It's actually going to come to me anyway, but they can also email me their comments.
And we'll have the website up at the end, so we won't let y'all leave without it.
We've had pretty good, public participation at like kind of our design charrettes and stuff like that with the different Mayfield and Deerfield and all that stuff. But in y'all's experience, I mean, is there a lot of public participation at these publicly announced meetings or not?
I think depends on.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. There's some communities where they're regularly engaging and folks are kind of plugged in and show up. To be honest, it's probably a lot of the usual folks that show up to that. A lot of times, and again, what the city did during the last plan was try to go to and have other events where they try to engage folks, or obviously something like the survey that gets to them. There's still some folks that want to show up at City Hall on a Tuesday or Thursday night and be presented to and go around the room. And so we try to do a mixture of things to kind of make it comfortable and accessible. So again, since this one's more of a minor update, the city's trying to kind of do that in a little more of a measured way and really build on the last. And you're right, it's not just, it's a really good point. It's not just the last comp plan. It's Deerfield, it's the UDC. There's multiple things that the city's been doing for years where there's been other opportunities for folks to kind of play along and follow along and comment. And all of that is what we're building off of. So
I think it's important to understand that Milton really values that it gives its citizens the chance to participate, to give their input, to be able, and I think some of the success of some of the plans we have implemented, I think about the extensive work that an effort we made, let's say with the Arnold Mill Small Area Plan or the Destination Deerfield, and multiple opportunities for people to come in and say, I understand it, I like it, I don't like this, could you change that? Went a long way with people buying into the vision because they felt they owned it because they had a chance to participate. So, AJ, to your point, I think having the chance for people to engage, I have to say I was a citizen when the last update was made for the 2040 comprehensive plan, and there I was on those Zoom calls from home during COVID, trying to participate. But I think if we can make opportunities just so people, one, are aware of it, and two, felt that they could be heard. And so, just my personal preference, and I think I'm hearing it from some of you, is if we can make sure we publicize the way for people to participate and encourage, that would be great.
I would just add with that, like, I don't know if Shuba or if Greg can maybe even put something together, even if you emailed it to all of us. And then that way, here's a little blurb or an email or the website, put something together, then we can then forward that to our HOAs, right? And the HOAs can then blast it out to everybody in their communities. So if Greg or you put something together that we can easily kind of forward on, that'll help get the word out so that people can know about the QR code and they can then chime in and put comments and know what the meeting schedule is, and something like that we can kind of send out to our HOAs. I think that'll help.
Great idea.
Cool. Okay, like we said, not the last time we're going to look at these issues and opportunities. We're going to keep moving. Feel free throughout the rest of the meeting here to jot down anything that sticks with you. We are going to ask at the end of today's meeting that we will take the sheets. If you want to take a picture, go home, look at it, think about it, please feel free. But yeah, hoping to take those. But like we said, not the last time that we're going to look at them. So yeah. Cool.
All right. So as I mentioned before, main element really is land use. Now, land use is kind of a complicated thing. What are we talking about? There's existing land use, what's out there today. There's future land use, what do we think we want it to be? There's zoning, which tells us and tells the property what they can or can't do. And then there's other things like overlays and other ways, and there's a lot of different tools and mechanisms that the city has. Kind of at its core, there's a couple of key things in the comp plan to call your attention to, and we have a slide that sort of does this in a couple of ways. One that's maybe the easiest way to show people who aren't used to looking at land use maps and stuff, what are we talking about, is maybe the character area map. Now, this isn't the end all, this isn't the map that the city makes decisions on, but at a high level, it tells you whether it's Sweet Apple, Crab Apple, Milton Lakes, Deerfield, kind of Highway 9 corridor, those are the places, and Birmingham, those are the places where we want to grow. And this blue area in between, it's not that there's no growth, but that is the slower growth, preservation, rural preservation kind of area. And so in an easy, quick snapshot, you can kind of tell where is the city willing to kind of grow, interested in growing and seeing some more investment, where are those nodes, and then where are the places we're trying to preserve. But it is a little more complicated than that because, I mean, how many parcels, how many properties are located in each of these? And so that's when you get to the future land use and the zoning code or the Unified Development Code that pulls a couple of things together I'll talk about in a second, that gets more into kind of a parcel property specific. And that's where you can see it is a little more complicated. Now, luckily, the colors do tell you something. And so you see kind of a similar thing. Lighter colors is this lighter kind of area. And these pockets with all of the different colors are those nodes, are those areas. So what the comp plan is supposed to do is at a high level start to say, what do we want to see in this area? And then let's drill down in a little more detail. When the comp plan is done, the city will turn and figure out from a land development standpoint, what codes or overlays or other things do we need to update to make sure and implement that. And so that's kind of a key thing we're going to be taking from this conversation we're going to have here today, as well as next meeting, maybe the following meeting, is how is it going from a land use standpoint? As we go around the city, how are we doing from the vision that we cast when it comes to private development and other investments that are happening? Are we seeing the types of development we want to see in the areas we want to see it? Maybe the staff knows we're getting a lot of pressure for a lot of types of things we hadn't anticipated or we're not sure is in line with the vision. And so what do we need to do in response to that? So there's kind of this flow down, as I mentioned, from character areas, future land use, and then zoning. And then the other thing, again, we're using a lot of jargon today, so I'm going to mention something here in just a second. But there's something the city has called form-based code. Anybody know what form-based code is? Developer knows what it is. Folks that have served before maybe know what it is. So form-based code is another form of kind of a zoning code, if you will. Just real quick, this is important for a couple areas. A lot of those key growth areas that we're looking at in the city have something called a form-based code on it. And what that's really doing is trying to think about what's the character and the look and the feel of this area. Typical traditional zoning really is use first, then maybe function, then maybe we also do care about what it looks like and how it fits and what the character is. Form-based code tries to flip that. We still don't completely forget about use or function, but we want to think about what does it actually look like and how does it fit within our community. In some ways, if you drive down the street, do I care if that's a Lifetime Fitness or if that's an office or if that's some sort of other institutional use, maybe a school or something, a college, as long as it fits with what I think this community should look like, maybe the use in there, I don't care as much about. Now, we don't want heavy industrial in these areas, and so that's a lot of those things are taken care of in Milton's codes. But there's two primary form-based code areas, primarily. So Crabapple and Deerfield. Again, I mentioned kind of some of the other things. The other thing is there's carrots and sticks to a lot of these regulations. The carrot is if you propose a development in that area that's consistent with the vision, that fits with what the city wants to see, ideally the thought is that your approval process should be quicker. You should be able to get through the approval process. We already told you what we wanted. We told you exactly kind of where we wanted and how we wanted. And if you show up matching that, then it should be an easier process for you as a developer. And then we as a city are actually maybe attracting the type of development we want. So there's supposed to be a little bit of an incentive on the backside because form-based code can be kind of trickier to administer. It can be a little trickier for developers that aren't used to it to know how to use it. I'll say this, y'all are one of a few communities in Metro Atlanta that actually uses it and can point to things on the ground that have actually used it and implemented it. There are more today than there were maybe several years ago, but y'all are one of the ones. And again, I say this because I worked at the Atlanta Regional Commission for a while. We kind of held y'all up for some of those proactive, innovative things that you were doing here that maybe other communities weren't undertaking. So form-based code. Now I mentioned something. We actually have I called it a cheat sheet. Jonathan has a better name here. Comprehensive Plan Key Terms. So we've said things like ARC, DCA. I don't know that we said GDOT yet, but there's GDOT. We said form-based code. We said zoning plan. There's a lot of things. So we've made at least the beginnings of a comp plan key terms so that y'all can kind of keep up with what in the world are these guys talking about. This is probably going to grow a little bit because today these are mostly focused on land use kind of things. I'm going to pass this out in a second. But as we go, if you hear a term that you're like, what in the world is that? Or how do we use that? Just raise your hand, jot it down, leave it behind for us. Because I think part of it is understanding how the city works and how these things come together. As we mentioned, y'all are helping our neighbors and our community members understand this stuff. So having folks informed on how this works out there, it makes the city's job a lot easier. So we'll pass this out here in just a second as we go. So not trying to give you a planning 101, but just a couple of things to keep up with. And it's not like things are stagnant here. So for 20 years, there's been a lot of development happening throughout the city. There's been a lot of things. I mean, the Crabapple area has changed tremendously. Deerfield's seen a lot of activity. And so it's not like things haven't already been happening. We're talking a lot about the future and what we want to see, but it's important to stop and take stock of what's actually been happening. And so here's just a couple of just quick examples. There's more than just these 4 things that have happened within the city. But generally speaking, this is the type of development that we've been seeing within the community. Institutional uses like churches, not a lot of them, but I've seen them. This is actually the largest kind of non-residential development that's happened within the city. Majority of the development has been single-family detached. If you're thinking about kind of unit by unit or permit by permit, a lot of the commercial development, while not 100%, there have been some rehabs and refreshes of different existing properties, maybe new businesses coming in. And we have seen some townhomes, not anywhere near the amount of single family, but we have seen some within the city. And so I think this is where we're going to kind of turn the end of our conversation, maybe to even pick up where we were earlier. And y'all are not supposed to necessarily be able to see what's up there on the map, but just as a little visual cue. How are we doing from a development standpoint? As you drive around the city, as you've driven around the city, walked around the city for the past 5 or so years? Are you seeing the types of things you hoped you would see? Are there things that we're not seeing yet? Are there things that you kind of wonder, like, how did that end up there? Why are we doing it that way? How is the city doing from a development and land use standpoint? We were starting to talk a lot about housing and questions about what should we do about housing. I think that's an interesting conversation that relates to this. But I'll pause there. First of all, any general questions about land use? And then second, I mean, trajectory that the city's on from a land use and development standpoint. Thumbs up, thumbs in the middle. How are we doing?
I think thumbs up. I think thumbs up. I love what we've done with just the crabapple community. And I would like to see that same character expanded as we continue to explore Destination Deerfield, that we expand this similar character and style of the community. I like the equestrian style fences. I hope that there's an opportunity to expand that in other areas of the city, but I would give it a thumbs up for the most part.
I would kind of second that. I think the city's done an excellent job. We kind of have pockets of higher density around the perimeter, right, of Milton, and we've kept the central core kind of the original character that the city and town has been for, 40, 50 years. So for the folks, maybe the younger folks that want the density, they want the walkability, the bars, everything that Crabapple offers, there's 800, 900 homes around here that offer that. We'll start to see, I think, Deerfield come into its own similarly with the project that just got approved, and there will be more behind it. And then for the folks that actually prefer the older character, you have the northern part, you have the central parts that, seemingly it's always going to be that way. So I think the city's done a great job, actually.
I know personally, I'm excited about some of the plans that were put in place for Arnold Mill, for the District of Crabapple, for Deerfield, and developing the rest of traditional Crabapple. I think the proof is yet of, we've got the plan, now we need to see it come to fruition. And so, all sorts of things can influence that, economic decisions, et cetera, that says, we believe we have a good plan, and I think we have the process and governance in place to help make that happen. You don't get to build a building unless the design review board says it looks like Milton. So I think the direction is right, but I think the last 5 years was getting the plan. The next 5 years are getting it to the vision, getting to actually see the construction. In Deerfield, in the district at Crabapple. And we're starting to see some of that in Arnold Mill, but there's still a lot of plans for Arnold Mill yet that have yet to actually break ground.
No, I would agree with the sentiments made. The only caveat that I would say, and it's just a data point I don't know much about other than just observation, is to what extent the existing commercial zones like Crabapple or whatever are sustainable. Like the local businesses there, are they thriving? Are they doing well? Or because we have a relatively low population and we have Amazon, are they struggling? Or what is going on there? It's a great idea, right? It's a good plan, but it has some realities that I've seen businesses close down. I've seen some spots not being able to rent out because this is an expensive area and it's an expensive place to get employees up here too. So that's my only other thought on that.
To piggyback off that, or is our form-based code too?
Greg?
Or is our form-based code too cost prohibitive that we are demanding the buildings be so expensive that the tenants can't afford it?
One of the things that we've talked about with Planning Commission and a lot of times with the Community Development Department coming to us, especially when we've been talking a lot recently about Deerfield and what we can do and all the different organizations and groups who have come to the community development department about ideas that they've had, and one of those things, again, to your point about, making sure that these businesses can thrive is where you've got to potentially have developments that have some sort of mixed use, some sort of housing on the development, just like the one that just got approved now in Deerfield, where it's going to be mixed use. So you're going to have multifamily there. You're going to have some restaurants there. There's office. So there's people who are living there who can then help support those businesses that are there, and that is one way to hopefully ensure that those businesses can thrive. And I think that's going to be the same idea with developing Highway 9 and, developing some of those other commercial areas that we have where you're going to have some of that mixed use. And so again, going back to housing and like how, what is our idea? What are we comfortable with from, what developments can be in those areas? Because you're going to need people there potentially who are there on a more of a day-to-day basis, just like Avalon, people who live there. I mean, so many of those people are going to go and spend money at those businesses there. It's just not everybody else who's just coming in. One other point that I would also say with land use, or one thing that, I'm glad, and I know we talked about this a lot over the last couple of CPACs, is active parks. And so I'm glad that we're finally going to have more of the active parks now, this development that's potentially going to happen on Deerfield. And, just thinking about that as well as one of the ideas in terms of land use. And is there another area where, this could be beneficial for our city? Because we always hear about it. All of us got kids and their sports, and, there's not enough fields and there's not enough whatever. And so anyway, that is something to kind of contemplate with, I guess, land use in our planning, and then again, having that economic development. Now I know we've got a new person. So that whole piece, to this puzzle and all of these pieces where you have economic development and somebody who can go out there and really share what we have over here and say, hey, this is where we can fit, your development in here and whatever else into the whole land use kind of planning and visioning.
Other thoughts? A few people we haven't heard from today. Other thoughts? I really like the train of thought there about, I think some of this is Milton's been pretty successful, maybe even a little bit of an understatement. There's a lot of really good stuff that's happened. Crabapple is held up as one of those communities. There's a lot of communities that look at it and say, oh, we want one of those. A lot of times the thing people used to throw in was like Atlantic Station. Scale was way off for a lot of communities, but they always wanted a mixed use walkable environment. And then Avalon became the next one. But there's a lot of communities that we've worked and we've talked to that they're like, you know what Milton's doing in Crabapple, that's what we want. Because there's a lot of communities that don't need the tall, multi-story kind of thing, just 2, maybe 3 stories. But I like the train of thought about, okay, but like now what? Like, is it sustainable? What's happening with the business? How do we maintain the speed that we're at and the quality that where we are now going forward? Because maybe it worked initially and we need to kind of think about how things have changed. Questioning codes and thinking about, do we need to tweak or make sure there's a level of education about how you can do this and the resources that are available for that. So, I mean, I think there's some good trains of thought there, yeah.
How do you judge success? Like, say it's successful. How are you judging? Footage, new buildings, just curious. Not a.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think to your point earlier, like success is a development, not just a building gets built, but a building leased, whole. It's actually pay rent. You actually have a sustainable. I think Milton's done a great job. President, I don't love the fact that I drive through downtown Crabapple and shuttered business. And I think that's a lot of concerns. That is, the bookstore went under, this restaurant went under. Yeah, like places have popped up, but so yes, I think Milton's been successful. Built a lot. Stuttering, for lack of better words.
And I have a question. Do we know why? Any type of exit review when businesses go out, do we know why they're closing?
I think,
They're not making money.
I think the citizens are voting. I think there's just not a high demand for, an authentic bookstore, right? I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but I think that the lease is high, but I think that's just an expectation of the city of Milton. And I think that that's an expectation of the citizens of Milton. And I think that there are certain restaurants that people go to and love, but it's very few and far between. And I think there's certain restaurants that people, you can't get a reservation at, right? And so I think that, like with Orkin, with this whole development, they have pretty strict and strenuous rules about what businesses can or cannot come in, and then what their terms are. Their letters of intents from different, and they don't want 4 or 5, Mexican restaurants in one little location. They want to diversify. But I think, to me, that's a sign of the citizens voting what they do and don't want. And so if a business is successful and it's done properly and handled in a correct, a good business-like manner, then they should survive and should thrive. But, I think that's also, too, a private sector thing that I don't know if the city really has much that we can't do about that. I think for me, from my perspective, as far as the design review board, I look at it in 2 different ways, because I'm like, hey, listen, we want this thing to be beautiful, but not crazy, right? There's been a lot of different projects that have come in front of the board that, the architects have put an ornate amount of architectural features and materials and colors and just vibrant things into these plans, which is just super overkill. And what happens is then those are just not feasible economically to build. And so I think, guiding it in a way that we want it to be a part and look like it's, preserving the heritage of Milton, but then also going to be here for 20 years as far as the facade of the building. I think that the city has done a good job of that. But I think as far as the internal build out and what actually goes in those is as a gesture of how the citizens of Milton vote on what they want and what they don't. Just me personally.
Yeah, no, that's good. I appreciate that. I think there's a couple things here. One, maybe hearing there's an issue. I don't remember seeing that one in there, but thinking about retail and local businesses and kind of the health of them, or what do they need? What support do they need? Milton didn't have a downtown formally when it incorporated. Now you do. And so now there's a place to actually worry about and think about. And it's multiple things. It's what's going on at the streetscape, what's going on at the intersection, are cars getting through or not? Can pets cross? Are businesses able to thrive, and why? A lot of communities that have had an established downtown have like a downtown coordinator, a Main Street coordinator, somebody that coordinates with the retail and businesses. Y'all have economic development staff that do a fair amount of that. And so maybe there's an issue, maybe there's a new issue here we just need to think about. And again, it's not a light your hair on fire, there's a problem, but it's like, you know what? We have something special we want to take care of. We need to think about it a little more. What the solution is, I think, is something we can keep talking about as a group here and kind of even hear from staff. Because I'm sure they've been talking about the same things when a business goes out or comes in, kind of what are some of the things that can be done to support. That's one. The other thing is, I kind of want to stick on this idea of how do you measure success? Because I think you're right. We said we're going to build a park and we built a park. We said we were going to have a downtown, we did a downtown. But is anybody going to the park? Is it actually what folks want? Are the businesses staying open? So I think it'd be interesting for y'all to even kind of think about, and if y'all want to write it down, or even just kind of we can keep talking about it, even as we go through these meetings, how do we measure if Milton's been successful or not? From the outside, right? Folks that are looking at, a lot of success. See a lot of homes being built. You see a lot of really good stats from a demographic standpoint. There's some questions around affordability, sure. That's probably everywhere. Milton, downtown, Crabapple, you say these words in other places and people don't think, they think they see success from where they stand. And so I think there's some perception related to success. I think the mechanics of success is a little more nuanced, to your point. But I think it'd be interesting to kind of think about how do we measure success, at least in the realm of the comp plan and development and some of the things we're talking about here because from a city functionality standpoint, right, same thing. There's a lot of really great things the city's been doing as a city, but not necessarily what we talk about in the midst of a comp plan.
And to that point, my wife and I's favorite restaurant is now gone, and it was a devastating blow to us. So.
Oh, no.
But anyway, sorry. What's that?
I don't think Milton's being successful. I think what you said was a good point. Like, a bad restaurateur is a bad restaurateur. Well, the people are going to respond well. Argue that we can by giving too much. A restaurant on a wait is better than a restaurant. Well, so I think we can be not to cannibalize our existing.
Yeah, and there's an interesting balance between city's role in helping think through that and private property owners thinking through that. And there's this delicate balance between that. And so I think again, we have something special now that we've created. How do we help that thrive? And again, a lot of things that were done, Milton put a lot of work into it, but the private sector was the engine that brought the energy here. And so it's that partnership between the city and the private sector and the citizens that ultimately makes it happen. So, I mean, I think this is I feel like there's a thread here of something interesting to think about. And as we're planning these next places, Deerfield, for instance, how do we think about, okay, once we're successful there also, assuming we are, we get the developments, we get the buildings, how do we maintain that momentum as well?
Question for staff. City ever given tax abatements to spark any sort of development that the city?
I don't think so.
Has given? Did you ask has given?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't really have a data right now, but I can definitely look into it. I know there was last year they announced that they were going to give not rebate, but there was some abatement that was announced last year. But I don't know if anybody benefited or requested any of that. And that was only specifically for Deerfield area.
But we are doing incentives, right? So like the new Deerfield development, the one that just came to city council, last night, night before? You know, they're putting in walking trails all throughout there. They're putting in a civic space for $1 for the city, or, and that's awesome. So you've got this private developer coming in, but the city has essentially said, hey, we want it to look like this, and then we'll give you an incentive to do a little bit of this if you'll give us a little bit of that. So I like how we're engaging with the private sector to do that. So maybe it's not necessarily an abatement, but it's more of like an incentive, which is, kind of a same reaction for the citizens, right? We're same benefit for the citizens.
And that's why I was bringing up the whole economic development, because everything is, and that's where, potentially a point of, and we brought this up before, I know, with tax abatements, but like what tools can that department have to help or to tweak an area like Crabapple where we want to make sure that these businesses continue to thrive? Or, what are some other tools or things that they can use to help generate, help tweak an area, whatever it could be? Could it be tax abatements or whatever, something else? But like that economic development piece, depending on, where we want to vision out, is it just going to be these couple of commercial corridors in the area? Is there anything else that we want to do from a commercial standpoint? But again, just overall, that economic development and how potentially we can help that area, to help the city.
That's a great point. If you give it to the property owner or the developer, is there any avenue or mechanism that makes them trickle down to the actual tenant? Right? Is there some way to do that? Is that kind of what you're getting at? So you could give the abatement to the developer, but does that developer have to spread the love to the individual tenants coming in? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and I don't know.
Is there a way that can we legally do that?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Is there something like? That could be. Yeah, there's so many ways to it, but yeah, the abatement that potentially is given to a developer to put this development here, right? Because this is something that we want. We want an employer to maybe move in here, right? Something like that, not just a development for, retail or housing, but maybe it's an employer to come over here, right? And so anyway, wherever that is to that company, and then I don't know if there's any other quote unquote legal strings that you can attach where they can filter it down to tenants if it's like a shopping area where they're going to have tenants or something like that. But again, just going back to the whole economic development piece and just how we can kind of make that a focus for that department on different things that we want to see, in the city, or where we want to be in the next visioning through this study, and how that department can get some other tools or make sure that they have those abilities,
Yeah. I mean, your staff has worked on a lot of this stuff and is familiar with other communities, but that may be part of it is other communities. What have they done to help support this or help see this through, from vision to actual reality? So, I mean, I think this sounds like, again, topic to kind of come back to and stay on. And I think if we do a little homework and bring that back to y'all, maybe there's some interesting thoughts there.
Yeah, I'd also like.
Bond for titles. And to answer your question, yes, they do pass down taxes. I would say City of Milton does not have a DDA. Developments that you made, Halcyon. Although, not saying we want those, all of those have tax. All those would say.
I think it would be helpful, I realize on each meeting we're going to have a different topic, but when we get to the topic of economic
yeah.
development, we have a brand new economic
Yes,
development
definitely.
manager, director, don't want to, that brings a lot of experience, and it would be good for him to maybe come and share with us some ideas that we might want to incorporate into ours, because we haven't done a lot of that in the past.
That
Does it
totally
make
makes sense.
for us
Yep.
to consider it now, or to put it on the work list to look at?
Yeah. And I was planning to do the same, like for transportation, I was going to get a transportation expert, economic expert, sustainability expert, so that, it's a work, shared work.
That's a great idea because the city's already thinking about a lot of these things and may have some things on the docket they're contemplating. One, to know there's a committee thinking about this that supports, thinks that's a good idea, let's run after that, or just some ideation that happens between that. And, okay, as we put the comp plan together, there's some things we want to draw a line between what you're doing and what's happening over here. Gives, again, staff and council that through line to understand there's some common things we're going after. So we talked a lot about housing earlier, haven't really come back to it, which is okay. We'll actually come back to that in another meeting. We were talking kind of retail and development and walkability and how does retail survive. It kind of got pulled into economic development. But again, this is all related. This is why it's in the comp plan. Anything else from a land development standpoint? Is there anything that's kind of surprised you, concerned you, anything that you think that's, if we could do more of that here or there, that's what I want to see. We heard a little bit about, can we get some of the same flavor of what's happening in Crabapple? Deerfield's a different area, but some of the same sort of walkability and mixed and things here over there. Any other thoughts on kind of what we are or aren't seeing? Yeah.
Just me with a young child, I would like to see more like playgrounds and places for young children to be able to play and go, when they're at home in the summer, there's like not really many places to take them inside of Milton to get some fresh air or to play and things like that. So that's one thing that's important to me and that I've noticed in the 3 years of being here. I do agree that Milton is beautiful and I love being here and I love everything about the community, but that's just one little shortfall that I'm noticing up front.
Some of your peers have, as they've built out their downtowns, they've continued to kind of fill in after their initial piece comes in. They've started to go back and retrofit and add spaces where mom or dad can sit over there and have a drink or have a coffee, and the kids can play basically right in front of them. So Peachtree Corners has done this. There's a town green, and surrounding it is places to sit, but then restaurants as well. Duluth has done this in a couple of small spots because they're realizing that's actually some of the secret sauce to get folks to come out to our businesses is places for families. And it's not even just families. Like, old folks need a place to sit, young folks need a place to sit, but when you can bring a place that mom and dad can sit and chill and kind of zone out and let their kids play, it brings this additional activity and supports the businesses. So you can't go to the Petrie Corners Town Green and not be packed any day when there's good weather. Even school days, a lot of times there's a lot of folks there. So that's a good point. Multiple strategies on how you make a place work. So that sounds like a Parks and Rec idea, but it directly impacts how our places work and how inviting and successful they are. So.
I think that's a great point, and I would amen it. I remember when our kids were younger, there was nowhere to go, it felt like. And I think tying it into a downtown or something like that makes a lot of sense.
Regarding,
Love to see Bill find a way to go to the green. So the green is private development, but it's by. That's possible.
Or a new city-owned green developed somewhere.
right across the street. In regards to housing, have we identified the remaining parcels that are even that even have the ability to be kind of developed or built out as far as how like AG1? I mean, it seems to me like there are still large parcels of land, but those are primarily tied up by either hobby farms or equestrian or a gravel road, or there's a lot of different constraints or restrictions that essentially won't really allow those to be developed into larger communities, like, 50 plus homes. I think you're seeing more of the flag lots, and I'm assuming that's why the city is looking at the moratorium and all that stuff, is because now everyone's going in buying 3 to 6 acres and making 2 to 3 homes. But really it's because of the lack of the large parcels of land, and because of the price points that companies can come in and build 50 plus home neighborhoods, right? I mean, have we identified how many actual parcels in the city of Milton there are that those are even possible?
To make it into a big subdivision?
Yeah, to do anything more than like 10 or 15 homes, right? Because it seems to me like everything you see that's popping up as far as housing is concerned is either your 2 or 3, homes right next to each other and being subdivided, or 5 to 10 lot little small enclave subdivisions, right? You don't really see the larger developments coming in. Just wondering if that's more of because of the cost or because of just the restrictions of the actual land that's out there.
I think it's a bit of both, and we definitely push for large lot subdivisions than the 1 acre subdivisions, and that plays into all this economy of can be affordable for even developer to split it up and sell. So I think it's both. I agree.
Developer, a regional developer who they were looking at a piece of property in Milton, and we were like, well, there's other pieces of property, and for that particular builder, they had a price range that they wanted to keep within, which was still pretty generous by all standards, but the land is so expensive here that even once you start looking at other pieces of property, it's like, I can't make it work at the price point I want to do. And I'm not saying 800,000, I'm saying up to 1.5, 1.8. And then it's like, it tops out, and then it's just really difficult. So, yeah.
And I think that has been the feedback though, that we have all received over the last so many years, where potentially citizens and people don't want the big subdivisions anymore. They want these small ones, 10 homes on a street, and that's it. They don't want those big ones anymore, But again, that kind of goes back to kind of getting the feedback from the city and citizens as to what they want, in this area. What do we want? Do we want to have something like that again? And that could also be where, whenever we only have 0.12% growth, because there's only a few, these homes, larger homes like that, right? You don't have 50 homes coming in one shot, right? where you can have a lot of people moving into the area. And that just may not, I mean, it doesn't seem like in the past, that's what people wanted, you know?
Yeah, I was just saying it's more of like a, what are the economical and geographical constraints that basically, whether people want it or not, prohibit it, But yeah.
From an analysis standpoint, I know back when the green print study was done, there was kind of an analysis of the large remaining properties that are out there, but it was mainly from a how do we preserve these things. So either thinking about what we put in place so that when the private sector develops, we can try to preserve some more of that, or as the city was looking to acquire things over the years, over the next 20 or whatever years that were on that plan. So I don't know if there's been more recent analysis, because a lot of that land either the city has acquired. There's a lot of parcels the city's acquired over the past, even just 10 years has been a lot. But also some of that development's happened now. So I don't know if that's a more recent.
I think there is plenty of green land available. It's just in private hands, and we don't really control what they want to do.
That's the part of the analysis. It's a little bit more nuanced.
Right.
Okay, how tied up is that land? How long has that person been there? Or are they sitting in a spot where they can even do anything with it? So to your
Well,
point.
it's like you said earlier about the city of Roswell, like, hey, where do we build, right? Because it's so built out. Same thing with like Johns Creek. Alpharetta everything really seems to be in that one kind of corridor. But because we have so much sprawling space, but most of it is privately owned, that it's not necessarily, it's not capable of building some of these larger ones just because of the geographical constraints, right? So
The other dimension from a demographic standpoint is the aging population. Where the good news is we're all aging as opposed to the alternative. But, we've really, when it comes to finding senior housing, I live in a 5,000 square foot house by myself because I want to live in Milton. There's really not an alternative of anything smaller, or anything smaller. It's like same price, but okay, now it's gone too small. But it's fascinating. Another friend of mine that's leaving Milton and just going just over the border to Forsyth County into a 55 plus targeted community. Those houses are at the $1 million range, and they are selling like hotcakes. Yeah. Yeah, they're just like, yep, phase 1 is built out, phase 2 is opening, and they're going, and they're mostly people from Milton that want the one story, don't want all the land to take care of, but want a 3,000 square foot house.
but that's a constraint, right, for Milton, because other than the high density corridors, everything else is AG1. So it has to be an acre, which, the 55 plus does not want the acre,
Right.
But, is there certain areas to look at to where it might not be a bad idea or be feasible to have, say, this could be a good zoning for a 55 plus, whereas instead of 1 acre lots, we can do, quarter acre lots.
And I have to say, this was some time ago, probably 2000, at least 10 years ago up near me, where we were hoping that they would build single story at the Birmingham Crossroads, but they went up just because of, trying to get the footprint on the land. That's an area that has a a sewer system, private sewer system. But that's the other thing. You need someplace that would be on private sewer. But even things like, people are like, well, if I want to go to someplace like a senior living center, there's a limited number of those. So I think taking a look at, for the people who want to stay in Milton, where can you age in Milton? So taking a look at, what kind of do we want senior housing? And if so, what kind do we want, and where do we want it?
I think there's a huge need for it. Like if you look at the orchard communities, right? We've got one here is when they're wait lists for people looking to purchase those homes. Hey, we want to be in the community. We don't want the huge 1 acre lot. These homes are beautiful. That's what we want. We just don't have that in certain in the rural part of Milton.
Yeah.
That is a great topic you brought up, both of you. I think we should definitely dig into that one and build into this new plan something that was not thought in last plan, aging in Milton. Because that is something is important for the community. We should keep discussing this one, I guess.
But, some of it too, I think of some of my neighbors who their kids graduated from high school and they moved to downtown Alpharetta. They wanted the walkability, were willing to give up, didn't want the yard work. And, but as I said, you downsized and uppriced. Yeah.
The other good thing about seniors too is usually they're good neighbors. So most folks don't complain about mom or dad, grandma, grandpa moving in. Sometimes the traffic impacts are a little less. These are long-term homeowners. So, as you talk about density and density for different folks, senior housing sometimes is that entry point to kind of think about. We need a different type of housing in our community than what we've seen. So there's a lot of, and y'all are not the only ones talking about this. When I worked at ARC, we talked about, and I think this was a national term, and it's kind of smirk-worthy, but they called it the silver tsunami that was coming. That basically, we are aging more so than we are kind of adding newer, younger folks. And so this will continue to be a thing. How do we provide that? And that can be some energy and some punch we need for redevelopment or for additional density in some areas as an option. And then, that starts to introduce some other housing types that we just hadn't thought about before. It's just senior housing wasn't really contemplated the same way. And I'll say senior housing has changed quite a bit in the last 10, 20 years. I mean, it was a home you put somebody in. There were a few places where you had quadplexes and things like that. We just, especially Metro Atlanta, didn't have a lot of that for a while. But now as you think about it, you can do some of that clustered development that's on a smaller lot, preserves a lot of the land originally that was being developed. You don't need a big yard for senior housing, lower traffic, hopefully, and provides an amenity for them, but then preserves that rural landscape. So there's some interesting models that are out there that if this is something we're thinking about, then this is kind of the right place to start.
Arnold Mill, maybe, for senior housing?
But wasn't there a 55 plus component to the Mayfield district? No. So.
Arnold Mill.
Yeah.
Well, we're close to time. I know this is a first meeting. We've covered a lot. As we go, the next meetings, we'll have a little less on the front end about who are we and what are we doing. We'll kind of be able to jump in. We will send you the PowerPoint just so you'll have it digitally as well. The worksheets, if y'all could leave them, if you want to snap a picture so you know what you kind of wrote down, whatever, but if you could leave it with us, we're going to try to track those a little bit. We'll come back and actually talk about that a little more. We may actually keep coming back to this worksheet a little bit as we go through the process. Again, you'll have the QR code in the everything else you can keep. Yeah, 100%. Yep. Just leave the little worksheets behind, and we'll have those again next time. As we wrap up, any final questions? Anybody have anything you've been sitting on, wanted to ask us or staff?
I got a question for Robin, our staff. Does Milton allow private sewer plants like the Publix package plant?
I'm sorry, I was yawning. The private sewer. I'm sorry, what was the first of the? It's a package plant.
Like the one at the Birmingham Publix. Does Milton allow that in a new development?
I think that the past councils have talked about it, and it's not a first choice. I think it's going back to trying to preserve the density overall. So that package plan and that development was initiated in Fulton County, starting in the early 2000s. So I'm not sure if, I don't know what would happen in the future. I know that touching a little bit, you were alluding to what we call conservation subdivision type development. About 10 years ago, we did a lot of looking into that. And I would say we were at the old city hall, and I've never seen so many people come to a meeting, to the point they had to be outside. Pitchforks, the whole thing. Like, no, we don't want conservation subdivision. So I think to that question it's highly unlikely that would occur again. So.
What's the cost perspective?
Right.
Extend the sewer outweighs the cost of the density that would come from it.
For the package plant you're speaking about.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah,
extending it.
I mean, in general, that it's such an expense where septic just a more economical route to go. If we're
You
talking
just
about
pass it through
affordability.
to the property owner, yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan just passed out the little key terms. Again, as we go through, if there's other things you hear that you're like, what in the world were we talking about? I mean, email staff, email us. Our contact info, Shuba, I think, is on the website. At least hers is. And she can pass y'all to us. Really appreciate your time. Appreciate y'all jumping in right away. Great conversation, great thoughts. We'll be meeting a month from today, basically. Prior to that, we'll send you some kind of priming information and just kind of know what we're going to be talking about. As Shuba mentioned, as we get through some of the topics, they're either staff or maybe there's a particular study or project that's related. We'll highlight that a little bit and then we'll get into the topic. But we'll come back and probably finish up our issues and opportunities conversation and land use conversation and then dive into the next one. So appreciate y'all's time and look forward to seeing y'all next month. Thanks.
Chair and Vice Chair, you want to close the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Again.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all very much for a
Great.
great meeting.
Thank you.